Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am
Hearing.
Mark Yale, GlobalSkin Board President, and I'm honored to welcome you to GlobalSkin's 2022 Year in Review. And what a year it has been. A year of ongoing global health challenges, but also of growth, impact, and opportunity for GlobalSkin and all of its members. It's my pleasure to share with you some strategic organizational highlights. And I will then invite Jennifer Austin, GlobalSkin's CEO, to speak in more detail about some of the key accomplishments and milestones achieved this year. This year, we have supported our members and encouraged the continued growth of our alliance. This includes significant strides in our research project and new advocacy opportunities to change the way the world understands diseases of the skin, hair, nails, and the mucosa. We have actively engaged with our strategic partners and enjoyed the continued support of our community and of our funders. We are concluding 2022 on a very positive note, and so much of this is thanks to all of you. I'm excited to look back on how much GlobalSkin has already accomplished this year. With over 200 members from 65 countries representing 54 disease areas, together we have begun to change the myths and misperceptions about the true burden of dermatological diseases. GlobalSkin understands that patients need a global voice in advocating for improved access to care and treatment, and we are committed to improving the lives of all worldwide through research, advocacy, and support. As I said, it's been a very busy year for GlobalSkin, as we continue to fund our members' patient organizations with impact grants in advocacy, event planning, communications, and marketing, and organizational development. We've established the Global Dermatology Coalition with multiple stakeholders and a group of like-minded organizations focused on putting medical dermatology on the global health agenda. We hosted a side event at the World Health Assembly in Geneva and open dialogue with the World Health Organization. And GlobalSkin patient advocates shared our perspective at the World Skin Summit in Lima, Peru. We celebrated as the atopic eczema community came together on September 14th to raise awareness for the disease. If you haven't seen the short documentary GlobalSkin produced called Skin, Our Barrier to the World, I would highly recommend it. It moved me to tears. And while I watched it and watched the people speak up about the burden it has on patients and caregivers, it helped me recognize the need for care and treatment that is reflective of the multidimensional nature of the disease. You can find the video on the GlobalSkin website. Also, I'm happy to share that the Global Research on the Impact of Dermatological Diseases, or GRID project, is in its final stages of creating a new impact measure in dermatology. Our groundbreaking patient-led research will help create a greater understanding across dermatology and dermatological conditions. The patient-reported impact dermatological disease, or PRID measure, will quantify the true impact of what it is to live with skin diseases. These accomplishments have helped propel us forward with precision and focus on our vision of creating a world where people with dermatological diseases are healthy, happy, and fulfilled. You may recall that our current GlobalSkin strategic plan from 2020 to 2022 is centered on building a supported, engaged, and inclusive member community, raising society's awareness and understanding of the full impact of dermatological conditions, and building a diverse and sustainable organization. As we make our final report on this strategic plan today, we wanted to recognize that when we developed that plan back in 2019 at our GlobalSkin conference, for some of us, it was the last time we saw each other in person over the last 3 years. This 3-year strategic plan was executed and implemented during the pandemic, which has been deemed among the most difficult and uncertain times of our entire generation. And yet, GlobalSkin and its members have persevered. We are so proud of our accomplishments, which were undertaken with flexibility, agility, thoughtfulness, and grace during these unprecedented times. You can see here some very impressive milestones achieved during these challenging years. It is exciting to be now concluding this 3-year strategic plan on such a high note. In 2021, we began working on a new strategic plan at the direction of GlobalSkin's board of directors. It was decided that this plan would cover a 5-year period, providing the organization with a longer period of focus and direction. The first step was to assemble a strategic plan working group to help guide this important work. This comprehensive process that includes robust members and stakeholder engagement was developed with Kathy Redmond, a consultant who has worked with GlobalSkin for the last several years. She expertly led our board of directors, working group, and at-large membership through surveys, SWOT and pest analysis, and the development of strategic objectives and impact measures that were essential in measuring our progress. Our members were vital to its process, which culminated with a live town hall event during our annual general meeting in June. We thank everyone who participated in this journey, and we're thrilled to have a new strategic plan that will guide GlobalSkin in all that it does for the coming 5 years. The 5-year plan is based on 4 important strategic objectives which ladder up to our vision: creating a world where people with dermatological conditions are healthy and fulfilled. Strategic objective number 1, elevate. Amplify the voice of dermatological patient communities globally. Strategic objective number 2, champion. Ensure a strong and representative global voice for people affected by dermatological diseases. And strategic objective number 3, unite. Change the way the world perceives dermatological conditions. And of course, no strategic plan would be complete without building a strong, inclusive, and impactful organization. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Jennifer Austin, GlobalSkin CEO, to share highlights of this year's activities and accomplishments. Over to you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate you providing that strategic overview. It's so important to guiding the organization. And I would just like to say, we're so grateful to Mark and many others, but I'd like to single out Mark for his dedication to the organization over the last number of years as our president. He's particularly put in a very active year this year with travel beginning again, and has been really representing the organization in such a wonderful and from a personal experience manner. So thank you, Mark. So I'm really excited to be sharing with you some of the highlights from 2022. There will be a full report that's going to come out on all of our accomplishments this year together over the next several weeks that will come out. But today we're going to focus on some highlights because there is so much to tell you. So we wanted to draw out some of the really exciting aspects of 2022. So one of the programs that we launched during our strategic plan that spanned the 2020-2022 timeframe was the Member Impact Fund. We know that member organizations have a great deal of challenge around fundraising. And so GlobalSkin wanted to be able to meet that challenge and to help overcome some of the barriers that are a result of fundraising challenges for our members. So we had a great number of projects that have come through over the last few years, but this year we've supported 31 projects from 21 countries and 22 disease areas. So really diverse group of projects. I'm going to explain one project to you that happened with the Eczema Society in Kenya. This organization worked with schools to host different games such as volleyball and a tournament where several schools and communities were involved. And the events were used as a platform to educate and sensitize school children about eczema and promote anti-bullying. The organization also had a football tournament with friendly schools where the last two teams were awarded trophies and cash rewards. They were able to involve community health workers and volunteers to help educate the participants, teachers, and coaches as well. And Rachel Ogala, who leads that organization, told us that the Impact Fund has helped them to reach a vast majority of people through different campaigns. Being able to reach over 500 participants in such a short period and seeing people recognize and acknowledge their work was such a success for them. So we're really pleased that we were able to be a part of Rachel's project with the Kenyan Eczema Society. And, you know, her example is just one of so many. And these projects show the passion of our members to improve the lives of their patients. It's really remarkable, the work that you're doing. And GlobalSkin wants to be able to help with that. So we're pleased that we've already just gone through the process of putting out a call for applications for 2023, and we'll be soon announcing who will be receiving grants. You can see, though, that we are increasing the amount that we are funding each year, and we hope that we will be able to increase the amount next year as well. So this has been a really big success for GlobalSkin over the past 3 years. Another program that we'd like to highlight is the Patient Expert Program. So GlobalSkin's been working with UPATI, which provides training to patient advocates on medicine's development and how patient organizations can be a part of that really important process. And we launched this back in 2021 initially, where we provided support to our members to take any of the UPATI courses that they wanted to take. We repackaged that slightly this year, and we offered a scholarship to 5 patient organization leaders to become UPATI fellows. So it's a very intensive process where you take many, many courses over the course of a year. And what the fellowship scholarship covers is the cost of the courses, but also to go to a graduation ceremony next October. And I'm really delighted to be part of the cohort of patient organizations that are doing the UPATI training. We have a group that gets together on a regular basis, and we have a WhatsApp group where we talk about the experience that we're having, and we help to support each other. So we're hopeful that this program will be ongoing. This is our first class going through the UPATI Fellows training together. We've also done some regional work. So often we focus globally, and we recognize, however, that many of our organizations have common regional challenges and priorities. So we held 3 different virtual meetings this year, and I just want to tell you about those meetings very quickly. So we had our first meeting, and I was able to co-host this with our board director, Guillermo, from Colombia. And this meeting found that there was a lot going on among the patient organizations. So just a few highlights of the type of work that those organizations are doing is around collecting national survey data from patients. And in that case, it was on atopic eczema, working alongside government to push the skin diseases agenda forward, and having their first in-person meetings since the pandemic. And our next meeting that took place was in Asia, and I co-hosted that meeting with Trong from Vietnam, who's also on our board. And some of the accomplishments and activities of the Asian patient organizations include creating podcasts and broadcasting psoriasis awareness information across the country, providing peer support through WhatsApp chat groups for vitiligo patients, and gathering disease-specific data to increase funding for the organization. And then the final meeting that took place was in Africa, and my colleague Nicole Sudiaco co-hosted this with our board director, Gaylord, who is from Congo. And some of the activities that are happening in Africa that are highlighted are around providing life-saving support for rural patients, developing creative programming to represent little girls with vitiligo, combating stigmatization and raising awareness in disease communities. And in that region, we also heard a lot about the unique needs that are special to Africa. And so having collected all this information and all this input from our patient organizations really has shown us that there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration in those regions and to be developing some specialized programs that can help in those regions. So there will be more to come on that over the coming 5 years in our new strategic plan. And we'll begin with some of that work next year when we meet at the World Congress of Dermatology in Singapore. We expect that we'll be bringing some of our Asian patient organizations together in person. In the rare derm space, we attended the first World Congress on Rare Skin Diseases, which took place in Paris in June. This was an amazing conference, and many of our patient organizations were there. You can see some of the pictures of some of your colleagues that were present. And we were very fortunate to be invited to co-organize a session from the patient perspective by the ERN, that's the European Reference Network, Skin group, and it was the patient advisory group that got us involved. So we worked with Antoine and Marie-Claude, two of our patient organization representatives, and it was just an incredible project for us to work on with them. And we had a full room for that session, and we hope to do the same thing when we have that conference again in a couple of years. So we'll be working on that. In the GlobalSkin Europe space, we had an event actually in person, which is so novel these days. This took place during the European Academy of Dermatology and Venerology's annual Congress, which took place in Milan in September. And so we hosted a side event that was just for our patient organizations, mainly for Europe, but there were definitely people there from other parts of the world as well. And the title of the event was Pitching the Next Great Idea. So participants were asked to present one of their success stories, something that was innovative or a best practice. And it could be something that they'd already done, or it was something that they were thinking about doing. We had 10 different projects presented. So this really fueled a lot of discussion and ideas of what patient organizations can be doing based on looking at what their colleagues have done successfully. One of the projects that I'll mention briefly was presented by Albinet, which is an Italian organization that supports people living with albinism. And as one of their first public projects coming out of the pandemic, they recruited some of their members to do a photo shoot with a professional photographer. And along with having their photos taken, the patient models were asked to provide short descriptions along with their story about their resilience in living with albinism. And one of the main goals of this project was to facilitate self-acceptance, knowledge, and empowerment. And to launch this project, the models had the opportunity to share their photos and stories at the National Association meeting. And then starting on June the 13th, which is International Albinism Day, pictures and stories were published on the Albinet Facebook page each day. And the goal was to raise awareness to the general public and to share experiences among themselves as an organization. So each of these projects that were presented in Milan exemplified unique ideas and highlighted the innovative, inspiring work of members like you. And this was a really great experience, I think, for everyone in the room. So if you're interested in learning more, all of these projects have been uploaded to the GlobalSkin Europe webpage, where you can go and have a look and perhaps get some ideas as well for yourself. So there's two special days that we recognize this year. So the first one is Rare Diseases Day. And this is something that we've been working to get our rare derm community involved with. So this year we provided a toolkit and shareable resources to 98 patient organizations in 33 countries, because that's how many we have that are rare diseases within our umbrella. So nearly half of our patient organizations represent rare diseases. And so you can see here some of the types of creative that was used. It was very much focusing on the fact that skin diseases and a large part are actually rare. If there's over 3,000 of them, the vast majority are rare. So we really focused in on rare diseases, needing to focus also on skin. So we'll be doing this again next year. The other day that we also focus on each year is World Atopic Eczema Day that we co-founded with IFA. And we had a really successful campaign this year. This campaign grows every year. And I think a significant addition this year was the fact that we had the documentary that Mark mentioned earlier, which we're going to have a very quick look at in a minute. And you can see some of the metrics here. We had 87 countries reached by GlobalSkin social posts, and we had a 46% increase in total impressions across all channels. That 87 countries, that doubled our reach over the previous year. So it was really successful, and we're looking at ways that next year we'll continue to leverage the documentary. So I'm now going to share with you a very short version of the documentary. The full documentary is about 10 minutes long. This is just a short clip.
I suffer from atopic eczema, and I need your help.
My skin itches, my skin swells.
Siento 1000 insectos que me muerden al mismo tiempo.
My skin hurts, my skin bleeds.
甚至乎好似俾火燒咁。
At times my skin has made my life
unbearable.
Estoy cansada de que me traten como si esto fuera una enfermedad contagiosa.
And I'm tired of
Feeling isolated
and alone.
I'm tired of being asked why I'm not in school.
我都好厭倦啲人問我點解成日都揾唔到工作做，或者介紹工俾我。
I'm tired of being strong.
And sometimes I'm tired of being alive.
Estoy cansada de no poder acceder a tratamientos eficaces y rápidos.
Our lives can be better. You can make it better.
所以我邀請你，全世界嘅決策者行動起嚟。
If there are treatments,
Make it possible for people to access them.
If support systems are in place,
Make it so people can actually use them.
如果你關懷，
Make it so people
can get the care they need.
Do something right now. You have the power to change our lives.
Quite a powerful video. And before I sort of explain this slide, I just want to say thank you to all of the patient organizations that helped to connect us with the patients for that documentary, and for the patients themselves and sharing such personal stories. I hope if you haven't had a chance, that you'll go onto our YouTube page and look at the full 10-minute documentary. This is just an example, I think, of the types of advocacy work that we can be doing together on a global basis. We've done it with atopic eczema, but there's certainly opportunity to do it across all diseases. And it's been very powerful in fueling the World Atopic Eczema Day campaign. So we know that this kind of work can really make a difference in other types of skin awareness campaigns. So thank you to everyone that was involved with that. And during a pandemic where we had to do it all remotely, I think it still came across very well and very authentic, despite the fact that we couldn't actually go and meet these patients in person. The next area that I want to talk about briefly is some of the work that we are doing on a global basis on behalf of our patient organizations. In 2022, GlobalSkin attended the World Health Assembly and hosted a side event with the International Alliance of Patient Organizations and the International League of Dermatological Societies. And we actually were able to bring in an expert from the World Health Organization to speak at this event. The topic was improving health outcomes for people living with dermatological diseases worldwide. And that's where we actually previewed the atopic eczema documentary. It was quite amazing actually to be able to show that documentary for the first time to an audience outside of GlobalSkin. And the feedback that we received from the World Health Organization was that they actually consider this to be qualitative data, these kinds of testimonials, and you know, it's very impactful. At that session in Geneva in May, we also launched the Global Dermatology Coalition, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But that was the launching pad to be able to launch this coalition that we've been working on forming for some time. So to explain the Global Dermatology Coalition, there has been a desire within the wider dermatology community, the multi-stakeholder community, to work together on a more formalized and planned out basis. And we began discussions actually early in the pandemic, the idea of how could we bring together this group and actually establish some common goals and objectives, and then actually work together. So that's where the Global Dermatology Coalition came from. And it consists of healthcare professional organizations, including the ILDS, which we work with quite closely, patient organizations, and these are multi-country organizations. So if you're not a multi-country organization, you're still represented through GlobalSkin. And also industry. So we have got currently 22 members of this coalition. And the vision is to improve health outcomes for everyone who's affected by dermatological diseases and conditions globally. And the mission of the group is to harness our collective power to raise awareness about these impacts and to increase health policy prioritization for dermatological diseases. What the coalition does is what we can't do separately. And that's the power of a coalition. So we can all do work individually as organizations and companies, but when we come together, there are special things that we can do together, like having a global awareness campaign. And that's the work that's actually going on right now. We will have a strategy by the end of the year about how to do a shared awareness campaign where GlobalSkin, but also all the other members of the coalition and our members, patient organization members, get involved with doing this awareness campaign. And we will launch that late in 2023 as a pilot project. And then in 2024, we will fully launch the awareness campaign. But we also want to do other things like talk to organizations like the WHO about how impactful dermatological conditions are and how the health prioritization needs to acknowledge that and to be sensitive to that. So we will have more to share with you next year about this, but just be aware that an awareness campaign is coming, and it will be something that everyone can participate in. And our data that will be coming out of the GRID project, which I'll speak about in a minute, will be really key in helping to empower that awareness campaign. So, of course, we're starting to get together now in person, as I mentioned, and I mentioned the fact that we had this side meeting at the EADV Congress in Milan. We were doing a lot of other things as well at that Congress. We had a Skin Matters reception, which is something that we do at all the major conferences, and we had the highest attendance yet, which was amazing. We had 7 presentations as part of the scientific program of the Congress by GlobalSkin staff and member organizations. And this also included participation in an EADV policy roundtable. And we also co-hosted a special session on shared decision-making. We had a high visitor rate at the patient advocacy booth, and we also helped in the formation of the new EADV patient task force. Another event that we were also active in this year was the World Skin Summit, which is an ILDS event. I was privileged to be on the planning committee for that event. And we had a delegation of patient leaders from 5 countries that traveled to Peru to attend the event. You can see pictures of some of us here. We were fortunate to be included in the program. I was able to present a number of times about how to work with patient organizations effectively as dermatological societies, who were really the main attendees at this conference, and also to present on the GRID project. We also hosted a workshop, which was really active. You can see in the bottom right and the top right photos, the workshop where we used a World Cafe style process to gather input on how the ILDS and their dermatological societies can be working more actively with patient organizations around the world. And I mentioned the GRID project. So if you're not familiar with the GRID project, GRID stands for Global Research on the Impact of Dermatological Diseases. The GRID project started back in 2017. So this is our 5th year of this project. And we are doing a lot of really incredible groundbreaking work through this project. We're creating a new measure in dermatology that ensures that the patient voice is heard when policy and decision makers are collecting data and information to make their decisions. We're filling a critical need for patient impact data, which we heard from our patient organizations at our founding meeting back in 2015. So this is something that patient organizations like you have asked us for. They need quantitative, verifiable data that can be used in their evidence-based advocacy. And we've been able to work around a common goal for the last 5 years as an organization, which I think has been really important as a young, new organization. And coming out of this project, we'll have new compelling proof points that we'll be able to share in things like this global campaign that the Global Dermatology Coalition will be working on. And we'll be able to educate policymakers through those new proof points of the true impact of living with a dermatological condition. This is a summary of the phases of the GRID project, and you can see that we have had nearly 2,500 patients worldwide participate in the creation of the new measure. The new measure is called Patient-Reported Impact of Dermatological Diseases, or PRID for short, and they have been instrumental in every step of the way. And the reason that they've been involved is because of you, the patient organizations. We have so many patient organizations that have been incredibly committed to this project and have gotten their patients involved. So you can see that they have really had an impact on creating this measure at every single step. In a few minutes, I'll talk about some of the next steps coming in 2023 around GRID, but for now, I just want to say a huge thank you on behalf of GlobalSkin staff and board and our researchers, because it has been a great journey working with you, and we're really looking forward to the next steps on this. There was a fair bit of governance work that was undertaken in 2022. We, as a result of working with our governance committee, have tackled, I think, some really important governance topics to be able to mature and continue advancing GlobalSkin. We have a new set of bylaws that our members accepted at our annual general meeting back in June. We now have a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategy that the board has recently signed off on, and you'll begin to see more of that throughout our initiatives. We have a new risk register, which is a best practice in organizational management to identify and manage and mitigate risks. And we've updated our financial policies with our Finance and Risk Committee, which is very active. And we have a new strategic plan, which you heard about from Mark. And this is a really important step for the organization to have in place this 5-year plan, which will give a lot of stability and long-term horizon for the organization to be planning towards. Mark already spoke about this, but we are already using the strategic plan in planning for 2023. All of our activities now come under one of these 4 strategic pillars, and it's already been incredibly focusing for the board and the staff in determining what we'll be doing in 2023. And just looking into 2023, what are some of the activities that fall under those pillars? So under the Elevate pillar, you can see that there are a number of initiatives. I've talked already about the Impact Fund. I'm going to talk about the conference next year in a minute. And there's all the work that our communities like Rare Derm, GlobalSkin Europe, and the atopic eczema communities are doing. Under Champion, we are going to be very involved with the World Congress of Dermatology, which is taking place in Singapore in July. I've been a part of the scientific program committee, and there's a lot of patient involvement actually in sessions, which is fantastic. We've never seen involvement like this at a World Congress before. We've got the awareness days that we'll be focusing on, and then the work we'll be doing around global advocacy, particularly with the World Health Organization. And under the Unite pillar, the GRID project will continue. I'll explain a little bit more about that. The Global Dermatology Coalition will be working as part of that on this global campaign and continuing to build strategic alliances. This might be one of the most exciting things that you'll hear today is about the conference, because we'll actually get to see each other next year if you haven't already seen your colleagues this year. So this will be an in-person conference, and it's taking place in June in Brussels. And registration actually opens tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that email and get yourselves registered. It's going to be a very dynamic and interactive program. We have 2 pre-conference events that will be happening on June 1st for atopic eczema and rare derm. There'll be lots of opportunity for member engagement and networking. And really importantly, there will be bursaries to help support your travel expenses. We've been able to successfully raise enough funding to be able to pay for travel. So you'll find all that information on the website when you get your email tomorrow to register. And so just some next steps on the GRID project. So we actually have very close to final PRID measure. It is just in the final stages with our researchers. And so this is one of the biggest milestones that we have seen yet in the GRID project. So having a final measure, which we will then translate into 15 languages. You can see here a snapshot on the right-hand side of what the measure looks like. We'll be going through a process of ensuring that the copyright is in place for this measure. GlobalSkin will own the copyright. And the next stage will be launching our global study using the PRID measure. And that will be taking place around May or June. And we will be including a lot of information at our conference about that global study and how we're gathering the data and how patient organizations under the GlobalSkin umbrella are essential to ensuring that patients have the opportunity to tell their stories in a very quantitative data sense by participating in the survey. So the survey will launch to your patients in May or June. And once we have collected all of that data, then we will be able to share that data back with you in ways that you will really be able to use in your advocacy work. And we assembled an advisory group of patient organizations this year to help tell us how patient organizations need to receive the data in ways that are practical and implementable in advocacy campaigns. What kind of tools and resources and training you need to be able to leverage the data and all of the new proof points that will be coming out that will really explain the true impact of living with dermatological conditions. So you'll see a lot more from us coming from us next year on this, with the final PRID measure in place and coming out in 15 languages. And I also mentioned earlier, just from a global advocacy perspective, some of the work we're doing with the WHO, but also I should mention the UN. So just in terms of the work that GlobalSkin is doing, we've actually had multiple meetings this year with the World Health Organization, and those meetings have taken place in several departments, including the non-communicable disease department, neglected tropical diseases, which skin has a big focus on actually, and the radiation department, which includes UV, UVB exposure. And we're now in the process of working on a collaboration agreement with the WHO of how we're going to work with them. And that is a lead up step to what we hope to achieve over the next year or two, which is to have official non-state actor status and official relations with the WHO. So that will be something that we're working towards. And that will be really important because the Global Dermatology Coalition ultimately is talking about seeking a resolution at the WHO on skin diseases to elevate their prioritization in global health policy. So those relationships with the WHO are really key. Next year, there are a few key meetings that are happening that I'll just mention. So the 2023 United Nations High-Level Meeting on Universal Health Coverage will be happening. We would very much like to participate in that, and we're looking at ways that we can do so. There's also going to be the first WHO global meeting on skin neglected tropical diseases. And this is a part of the WHO we're already working with, so we're really excited to see that happening in March. In 2025, the fourth high-level meeting of the United Nations General Assembly on the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases will be taking place. And this is the first time that they've had a high-level meeting on NCD since 2018. So this will be a really key meeting. And we know that high proportion of skin diseases are non-communicable. So this is also an area where we can really leverage our input to hopefully have more attention paid to dermatological conditions. So certainly keep you posted on this and opportunities where patient organizations can play a role. So this concludes my presentation, and I guess, really important takeaway is a lot has happened this year, and it's been incredibly positive to work with all of you during very difficult times. This 2020 to 2022 strategic plan, as Mark mentioned, spanned the pandemic, and we know it was difficult for everyone in our organization, everyone in the world, and yet you've all persevered and have continued to do amazing things, which is exemplified by the Impact Fund and the kinds of projects that you're running. And GlobalSkin, for its part, has been able to stick with its plan and to continue delivering and to have really huge milestones, including the development of the PRID measure. We've been able to adapt to an online environment, and I think it's made all of us more resilient as a result. So we're extremely gratified to see what everyone's been able to do during this difficult period. And we're excited to see what the next 5 years in our strategic plan will bring. And none of this is possible without you. And so we have a lot of thank yous that we'd like to do, but rather than reading it out, we're going to show you a quick video, and then Mark will come back on to give some concluding remarks.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, for the comprehensive summary of our 2022 accomplishments and the preview for the coming year. Very, very exciting year to come. And thank you again to all of those who participated and really brought us to where we're at today. All of those people that were listed in the video we just showed. Thank you all so much. And as you can see, it definitely takes a village, and I'm so honored and pleased to be part of this effort to improve the lives of people living with dermatological conditions. So we encourage you all to continue to take part in our alliance, whether you're a member or a stakeholder or a partner. I look forward to seeing everybody in Brussels in June, and encourage everyone to make sure that they continue to participate in the GRID study and make sure that your patients are represented. And we're almost there. We're almost over the finish line. So please continue to engage and engage by connecting with your regional and disease communities, rare derm, atopic eczema. Get involved, be part of the solution. And of course, make sure you attend our webinars and network with your peers. I want to thank everybody, and we thank everybody for your time and energy and commitment to our organization. And we thank you for being part of the activities in 2022, and look forward to our continued collaboration with all of you and continued growth for 2023. On behalf of the board and the staff and Jennifer, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And again, I look forward to seeing everybody in Brussels.